Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at something a little different.
Yeah.
It's a question that's been popping up more and more these days.
Mm-hmm.
Martial arts in early childhood education. Yay or nay?
Big question.
Yeah. We've got some interesting sources to dig into for this deep dive. First, we have an excerpt from an education expert's guide, Timothy Lynch.
Okay.
And then we've got this article from The Conversation that raises some concerns.
Interesting.
So we're going to be trying to figure out, are we talking about creating like tiny ninjas running around preschools?
Right.
Or is there a little more nuance to this whole thing?
Yeah, definitely more to it than meets the eye. It's not really about, training preschoolers for combat or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's more about introducing them to fundamental movement skills
I see.
and, a little bit of discipline, but in a fun way.
Okay, so not necessarily trying to get them black belts by the time they hit kindergarten?
Exactly.
That's kind of what I was picturing in my head. But the guide we have here, this Timothy Lynch Education Guide, talks about some pretty interesting potential benefits.
Yeah.
It mentions self-defense skills, of course, physical activity, boosting motor skills. It even goes so far as to say it could lay the groundwork for a healthy lifestyle later in life.
Right, and that's really
I'm
fascinating.
a big preschoolers.
I know, it's
Yeah.
amazing, right? What I find really interesting is how this guide positions martial arts as a complement to traditional physical education.
Okay.
It's not about turning these little kids into fighters.
Right.
It's about giving them, activities like practicing balance while they're kicking,
So interesting.
learning punches, which also helps with hand-eye coordination.
Makes sense.
And it also stresses, things like respect and self-control,
Yeah.
which are, those are valuable no matter where you are in life, not just in the dojo.
Yeah, and speaking of dojo, just for our listeners who might not be martial arts experts,
Right.
dojo is basically like the training space for martial arts, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like you can think of it like a dance studio, but for kicks and punches.
Exactly. And speaking of kicks and punches,
yeah.
our article from The Conversation brings up some pretty valid concerns, I think, about,
Yeah.
potential for injuries, especially if these classes aren't taught super carefully.
Right, with age-appropriate techniques.
Yeah. And they even mentioned some cases in Japan where martial arts was mandatory in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually did lead to some injuries.
Yeah, that makes you think, right?
It really does.
About how important it is to have, really qualified instructors,
Yeah.
people who understand child development,
For sure.
and who are going to put safety first, above everything else.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that Timothy Lynch's guide really emphasizes too, right?
It does, yeah. It talks about going at individual learning paces, meeting kids where they're at,
Okay.
adapting to different needs.
So one kid might be ready to try a basic block and another one might still be, working on,
Figuring out how to roll.
yeah, just basic rolls and stuff.
And a good instructor can, handle all of that,
Right. Meet all those different needs
Yeah.
in the same class.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. But the article also brings up this worry that some parents have, and I think it's understandable, that,
Yeah.
kids might misinterpret what they're learning about self-defense.
Oh, yeah.
And could they end up using these moves
Out of class.
in the wrong way?
That's a valid concern for sure. And it really highlights how important it is for instructors to be really good communicators.
Yeah.
And to set the context really clearly for these kids. Martial arts classes for preschoolers, they should be about building confidence,
Right.
building that physical literacy. It's not about equipping them for street fights.
Right.
A good program is going to be very clear that these moves are for the dojo.
Yeah.
You don't use them to start a fight, you know?
Right. Which is interesting because, we do teach kids about stranger danger and being aware of their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
So is there an argument to be made that maybe they should also be equipped with
Some tools.
some tools to protect themselves?
That's a tough one. It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
Teaching kids to be aware, to be assertive.
Right.
It's essential.
Mhm.
But encouraging them to, engage in physical confrontation,
Yeah, at that age.
especially at that age. Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah.
I think martial arts can provide, a foundation for self-defense later on in life.
Right.
But when they're preschoolers,
Yeah.
the focus should really be on things like coordination and balance,
Yeah.
discipline, Those building blocks, I think, are really
So
important.
building blocks for physical and mental development.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. One thing that the article touched on that I thought was kind of interesting was
Yeah.
this idea of thinking about martial arts as physical play,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
especially these days when, a lot of kids are spending so much time indoors.
Yeah.
Could martial arts be a way to get them moving
For sure.
in a way that they actually enjoy?
Absolutely. Think about it. I mean, kids love to jump, they love to tumble, they love to play tag.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about that energy, right?
Yeah.
Martial arts can tap into that, but in a structured way
Yeah.
that can help them, develop coordination, body awareness.
Yeah. So it sounds like what we're kind of coming down to here is that there is definitely potential for martial arts to be a good thing
Mm-hmm.
for preschoolers.
Yeah,
But it's all about how it's approached.
exactly.
It's about safety. It's about age-appropriate techniques.
Yeah, and responsible implementation.
Absolutely.
And I think parental awareness is huge here, too.
Hmm.
Understanding what the program's all about, talking to the instructors, observing the classes,
Yeah,
making sure that it really is a positive and enriching experience for their kid.
that's a great point. So much to consider. And as we wrap up today, here's something I want you all to think about. What if we took this idea of martial arts and we incorporated some mindfulness practices?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What if we brought in some emotional regulation techniques
That would be amazing.
along with the physical stuff? Could we help these tiny ninjas not only learn how to, move their bodies, but also how to, calm their minds?
That's a great question.
It's something to consider as you're, exploring this topic further on your own. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
Catch you next time.
See ya.